Now, the Cleveland Browns are really interesting because their biggest concern going into training camp is going to be who's going to be their second reliable option in the passing game outside of Amari Cooper at wide receiver. Now, they got a lot of talent at wide receiver. They traded for Elijah Moore, who was playing with the New York Jets, underutilized, couldn't really find a role for him in that offense. And he's been really impressive so far for the Cleveland Browns throughout OTAs and mini camps. There's been a lot of Cleveland Brown websites that have been hyping up Elijah Moore. So I want to see, is he going to be able to put it all together throughout training camp? Because we already know there's a lot of guys who look really good in shorts and tank tops, and then we get to training camp, and then we get to the regular season, we don't really hear about them. But Elijah Moore was somebody who was getting a lot of praise when he was coming out of Ole Miss a couple of years ago. And you look at him with a guy like Deshaun Watson, if he does end up holding on to that starting slot receiver role, which he should, I think this is somebody who could have a breakout season. Now, you also have my guy, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't going to be starting in the slot over Elijah Moore, but you're just looking at a guy who, are you going to be that consistent second option? Are the Browns going to have somebody who they can consistently go to, who can get the job done over and over again when Amari Cooper isn't open? And when you look at a Donovan Peoples-Jones, this is somebody who has been pretty productive over his last couple of years with the Cleveland Browns. I think he had a pretty solid 2022 campaign. He caught 61 passes for 839 receiving yards. He had 3 touchdown catches as well. Has a lot of upside with his size, his athleticism, but I still feel like there's a possibility that my guy Cedric Tillman could end up starting over Donovan Peoples-Jones. And Cedric Tillman was the most underrated wide receiver coming out of the 2023 NFL draft. He was better than Jalen Hyatt, and I felt like he was a first-round caliber wide receiver. When you watch Cedric Tillman, there's no way you can't tell me you don't see a little bit of Mike Evans. Like, I see a lot of Mike Evans when I watch Cedric Tillman play. And I really feel like Cedric Tillman, throughout training camp, can prove to the Cleveland Browns coaching staff that he could end up being a better number 2 option than Donovan Peoples-Jones and Elijah Moore potentially. Like Elijah Moore, I think he's going to be really good in the slot for the Cleveland Browns. But as a second option, I really like Cedric Tillman to be that guy. He has really good hands. He's a really good athlete for his size. And he's also pretty good after the catch, in my opinion. And he's somebody who you can throw the football downfield. He can go get those 50-50 balls for you. So I think that Cedric Tillman has way more talent and upside than a guy like a Donovan Peoples-Jones does. So I think that Cedric Tillman could end up being a really good pickup in the steal for the Cleveland Browns, depending on how he performs this season. And training camp is going to be the proving ground for Cedric Tillman. You also do have David Bell, Marquise Goodwin there. Now, the next important position battle that we're looking at for the Cleveland Browns is going to be on the defensive line. Now, we know that Dalvin Tomlinson is going to be one of your starting defensive tackles, but who's going to be the next one next to him? Okay, now, you got a good amount of guys. You got Jordan Elliott, who started every game for the Cleveland Browns last year, but to put it nicely, he just wasn't all that good. Now, maybe he ends up winning the starting job in training camp in the preseason and ends up getting the starting nod this year again. But you also do have defensive tackles, Maurice Hurst, Tristan Hill, who you signed in free agency, guys who could be pretty good depth guys behind Jordan Elliott and Dalvin Tomlinson potentially. But I think that Maurice Hurst and Tristan Thompson also could push for one of those starting defensive tackle jobs. And then you got rookie Siaka Ika, who you drafted out of Baylor in the 3rd round of this past year's draft. Now, he doesn't bring much from a pass rush standpoint, but he definitely is really good against the run. This dude is an anchor in the run game. He's somebody who's able to make plays outside the tackles, inside the tackles as well. So I think that he could be a guy who could end up getting the starting nod next to Dalvin Tomlinson, just for the fact that he's going to be really good against the run. And you look at the struggles that the Cleveland Browns had defending the run last year, which is why they brought in a new defensive coordinator, and they brought in so much depth and talent and paid big money to Dalvin Tomlinson, because they need somebody who can clog up those running lanes and be really formidable against the run. So I think that you're going to get that from Ika, and you're going to get that from Dalvin Tomlinson. Now, are they looking for more out of their defensive tackles? They want a defensive tackle that not only is good against the run, but also can give you more from a pass rush standpoint. I probably think it would go to Jordan Elliott. But I do feel like Siaki Ika could end up being a guy who ends up having a pretty good role if he doesn't end up getting the starting nod for the Browns this year. Now, players for the Cleveland Browns that I'm going to have my eyes on this season and throughout training camp, the first one is going to be Jerome Ford. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you guys would know that I've been a big fan of Jerome Ford during his time with the Cincinnati Bearcats, and I thought that he was the third best running back coming out of last year's draft. So I was insanely shocked and flabbergasted when the Cleveland Browns got him late in the NFL draft that year. Like, I don't know what scouts saw in Jerome Ford that I was missing that made him fall that many rounds, but I thought that he was going to be a second round, third round pick. And they end up getting him late in the draft, and I think that he's going to be an incredible replacement for Kareem Hunt. And there are people who are saying that Kareem Hunt is still a really good back. Like, Kareem Hunt is not the running back that he used to be. Okay? Like, Kareem Hunt, he's lost a lot of speed. He doesn't really have the acceleration and the burst that he used to have a couple of years back. So I think they were right to move on from him. I do think that Jerome Ford is going to be a really good RB2 behind Nick Chubb, and he is going to get opportunities because, you know, the Cleveland Browns are a team that runs a two running back kind of system anyway. So Nick Chubb is going to get most of the carries, but Jerome Ford is going to have some opportunities to show everybody why he was one of the biggest steals of that draft when the Cleveland Browns got him where they got him. And one thing that I really like about Jerome Ford is that I think that he has incredible vision, and he also has really good acceleration. So I'm a big fan of Jerome Ford. I'm going to be having my eyes on him throughout training camp. And then we already touched a little bit about wide receiver Cedric Tillman. I think he has a lot of similarities to Mike Evans. He can be a really good 50-50 ball wide receiver when you're looking for somebody to throw the football to downfield, but he also can be a problem after the catch with how fast he is and that size that he has. So I'm a really big fan of Cedric Tillman. Got to keep my eyes on him. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, Dorian Thompson-Robinson isn't competing for the starting quarterback job, but he is competing for the QB2, QB3 job with Joshua Dobbs and my dude Kellen Mond. Now, DTR was somebody who many people viewed as a gem prospect. And what a gem prospect is a prospect that has potential to outplay where they get drafted at. For example, Dak Prescott was a mid-round selection, and he ended up being a really good selection by the Dallas Cowboys because he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Not one of the best, but one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And if you can find a top 15 quarterback in the middle portions of the NFL draft, that's a steal. So when you look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson, this is somebody who has really good arm strength. I think that he does a pretty good job reading the field. I feel like a lot of his mistakes are just him trying to force the issue. He also does have really good athleticism. He is really good throwing the football on the run, and every single year that he played for UCLA, he got better. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Dorian Thompson-Robinson does for the Cleveland Browns throughout training camp, and maybe he ends up winning that third quarterback job over Kellen Mond. I think Kellen Mond probably could be a guy that ends up getting the deuces, or maybe they put him on the practice squad in case they have an injury to Deshaun Watson, unfortunately, and you got to start Joshua Dobbs, and then you can insert Kellen Mond to be your quarterback 3, and then DTR becomes your QB2 in that situation. But I'm just really looking forward to watching DTR to be honest with you, because I'm just a big fan of his game. I watched him when he was coming out of high school, so he's just somebody that I'm just following just because he may not have like a really big impact on the Cleveland Browns winning games or not this year, but he's just a player that I really have taken a liking to over the years, and just following his career from high school to college to the NFL. I'm just somebody who loves keeping up with players that I watched and kept up with coming out of high school, and to see him in the NFL, I'm kind of happy for him. Keeping it real, like I was watching his highlights when I was in 11th grade in high school. So I'm really happy that DTR has gotten an opportunity with the Cleveland Browns. They drafted him in the 5th round. There were some people who thought that he probably was going to go undrafted, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up winning that backup quarterback job over Joshua Dobbs. But at worst, I expect him to be QB3 over Kellen Mond.